Hello students, I am Dr. Krishnada Parveen. Today I am going to discuss about dural folds and venous drainage of the brain. Dural folds. Living brain is on the soft and mushy side. Living brain is soft. Despite the network of cytoskeleton proteins contained in neuron and glial cells, the brain containing neurons and glial cells, but it is soft in consistency. Without support of some kind, the central nervous system would be unable to maintain its shape, particularly as we walk and run around and occasionally bump our heads. The brain and spinal cords are protected from outside force by their encasement in the skull and vertebral column respectively. Brain is protected in skull and spinal cord is protected in vertebral column. In addition, the CNS is suspended within a series of three membranous covering. This covering is known as meninges. Meninges, the word meninges comes from Greek word meaning meninx. Meninx meaning membrane. So these three membranes are known as meninges. These meninges stabilizes the shape and position of the CNS. The brain is mechanically suspended within the meninges, which in turn are anchored to the skull, so that the brain is constrained to move with the head. There is a layer of cerebrospinal fluid within the meninges. The buoyant effect of this fluid environment greatly decreases the tendency of various forces, for example, gravity, to distort the brain. Thus, a brain that weighs about 1500 gram in air effectively weighs less than 50 gram in its normal CSF, where it is easily able to maintain its shape. How many meningeal layers are in CNS? You all know there are three meningeal layers: the dura mater, arachnoid mater, and pia mater. The three meninges from outside to inward, they are dura mater, which lie outermost layer, the arachnoid mater, and the pia mater. The dura mater is by far the most substantial of the meninges, and for this reason it is also called the pachymeninx. Pachy is a Greek word meaning thick. That's why dura mater is also known as pachymeninx, as it is thickest meningeal layer in the CNS. The arachnoid and pia mater, in contrast, are thin and delicate. They are continuous with each other, often regarded as two parts of a single layer. So, they are sometimes referred together as pia arachnoid or leptomeninges, from Greek word lepto meaning thin or delicate. So, dura mater is also known as pachymeninx, and pia and arachnoid matter is also known as leptomeninges. The dura mater is attached to the inner surface of skull. One side of dura mater is attached to the inner surface of the skull, and other side is attached with the arachnoid mater. The dura mater is adherent to the arachnoid mater by dural border cells and pressure from the CSF. The pia mater is attached to the brain following all its contour, as I discussed in my previous classes. The pia mater lie within the deepest sulcus. The space between arachnoid and pia mater are filled with CSF. This space is known as subarachnoid space. It carry cerebrospinal fluid. The same three meningeal layers continue around the spinal cord but have a slightly different arrangement. I discussed the arrangement of the meningeal layer in spinal cord in my lecture. Now come to in this class I am going to discuss about dural folds. So from now I discuss about dura mater. The cranial dura mater is a thick, tough collagenous membrane that adheres firmly to the inner surface of the skull. See, this is the inner surface of a skull. This surface of the skull is covered with the endosteal or periosteal layer of the dura mater. So dura mater having two layers. First one is the which line the bony part of the skull is known as endosteal layer, and second one which overlies the arachnoid matter is known as meningeal layer. Here is the meningeal layer, here is arachnoid matter, and innermost layer is the pia mater. Dura is a Latin word for hard, as in durable. Dura is a Latin word which means hard. That's why it is known as dura mater. It is often described as consisting of two layers: an outer layer that serves as a periosteum of the inner surface of a skull, and inner layer or meningeal layer. Because these two layers are tightly fused, there is no sharp histological boundary between them. An entire complex ordinarily referred to as dura mater. There are some spaces between the different meningeal layers. These spaces are, first one is epidural space. It lies between bony part of the calvaria and dura mater. That is between the endosteal or periosteal layer of the dura mater and bone. There is no space in any pathological condition between two layers of dura mater. That is between meningeal layer and endosteal layer of dura mater. There is no space. See, here is the bone. This is dura mater. Here is epidural or extradural space. Sometimes the middle meningeal artery broke and bleeding occurred here. Second one is the subdural space. See here, this is the subdural space. It lies between the dura mater and arachnoid mater. This is arachnoid mater. See, this is arachnoid mater. This is subarachnoid space. Third one is the subarachnoid space. As all of you know, what is subarachnoid space? It is the space between arachnoid mater and pia mater. See, innermost layer is the pia mater, which attached to the contour of the CNS in the sulcus and gyrus. So there are three spaces. First one is extradural or epidural space. Second one is subdural space. Third one is subarachnoid space. Now come to dural folds. Folds of dura mater. Dural fold partially separate different intracranial compartments. There are several places where the inner dural layer, means meningeal layer of the dura mater, separate from its external counterpart, means from the endosteal layer of the dura mater, and protrude onto the cranial cavity. Some folds of dura mater protrude into the cranial cavity. Such extension of dura reflect back on themselves to form double layered dural folds known as dural reflection or dural septa. The principal dural folds are, there are four major dural folds are Fox cerebri, Tentorium cerebelli, third one is Fox cerebelli, and fourth one is diaphragma celli. Fourth one is diaphragma celli. Fox cerebri. Fox cerebri, as you all know, lie between the two cerebral hemispheres. This is the Fox cerebri. Dictionary meaning of fox is sickle shaped. So it is sickle shape in appearance. That's why it is known as Fox cerebri. It lies between the two cerebral hemispheres. Here is the Fox cerebri. Second one is Tentorium cerebelli. Tentorium cerebelli is the fold of dura mater, which below which lie the cerebellum and brainstem. Third one is the diaphragma celli. This is diaphragma celli, which roof the pituitary fossa. Fourth one is the Fox cerebelli. Just like Fox cerebri, there is a small fold of dura mater on the undersurface of the Tentorium cerebelli, which lie between the two cerebellar hemisphere, not cerebral, the two cerebellar hemisphere. Now come to the falx cerebri. Falx cerebri is a long arched vertical dural fold that occupies the longitudinal fissure and separates the two cerebral hemispheres. It is attached to the crista galli of ethmoid bone on anterior side. Falx curve posteriorly and fuses with the middle of the tentorium cerebelli, ending posteriorly at internal occipital protuberance. As you have studied the cranial cavities, I think you all are acquainted with these terms: internal occipital protuberance or crista galli. See, here is the crista galli. This is the part of ethmoid bone. The falx cerebri. This is the falx cerebri. Anterior-most part of the falx cerebri is attached to the crista galli. It turns backward and end at the middle of this. See here. Here is the tentorium cerebelli. This is tentorium cerebelli. The falx cerebri attached on the upper surface of the tentorium cerebelli in the midline, up to the level of internal occipital protuberance. See, here is the internal occipital protuberance. The lower margin of the falx cerebri is free. It is sickle shape in appearance. Upper margin is fuses to the frontal and parietal bone in the midline. In this fold, there are two venous sinuses. Venous sinuses, what is venous sinus? I will discuss later on. In the upper attached margin, there is superior sagittal sinus. In the lower free margin, there is inferior sagittal sinus. Now come to the tentorium cerebelli. Tentorium cerebelli separate the superior surface of the cerebellum from occipital and temporal lobe. See, here is the tentorium cerebelli. On the upper surface of tentorium cerebelli lie the occipital and temporal lobe. Cerebellum lie beneath the tentorium cerebelli. This tentorium divides the cranial cavity into supratentorial compartment and infratentorial compartment. The supratentorial compartment contains forebrain and infratentorial compartment or posterior fossa contain the brain stem and cerebellum. Because the cleft between cerebral hemisphere and cerebellum are not horizontal, so tentorium is not horizontal in shape. It somewhat resembles like a bird with its wings faces anteriorly. The body of birds lie at the junction of the falx cerebri and tentorium cerebelli. The tentorium cerebelli, what are the attachment of tentorium cerebelli? See, tentorium cerebelli is attached mostly to the occipital bone at its transverse sulcus. Here is the transverse sulcus which extends laterally from the internal occipital protuberance. It turns to the petrous part of the temporal bone on the superior surface. This is the attachment of the tentorium cerebelli. From here, it has tentorium cerebelli having two margin, just like falx cerebri. It has free margin and it has attached margin. See, this is the attachment of the margin. The free margin is U-shaped notch, is known as tentorial notch or tentorial incisura. The concave free margin is traceable forward. The free margin is traceable forward up to the anterior clinoidal process. See, in this cranial cavity, you can see it is here is the pointed bony part is known as anterior clinoidal process. The free margin of the tentorium attached to the anterior clinoidal process from the apex of the petrous part of the temporal bone up to anterior clinoidal process. The fold of dura mater appears like a ridge. Here no bony attachment occurs. There is a span of the dura mater between two bony points form a ridge. The third and fourth cranial nerve passes the medial side of this fold. It forms the roof of the cavernous sinus. I discussed cavernous sinus later on in this class. This ridge form the roof of the cavernous sinus. Cavernous sinus lie at this level here. Now come to the falx cerebelli. It is a low elevation on inner layer of the dura mater, that is meningeal layer of the dura mater, in the midline of the posterior cranial fossa, extending from the internal occipital protuberance along the internal occipital crest to the posterior margin of the foramen magnum. See, this is foramen magnum. Here is the margin of the foramen magnum. This is internal occipital protuberance. This is internal occipital crest. The falx cerebelli attached here, and upper surface of the falx cerebelli attached to the under surface of the tentorium cerebelli. It separates the two cerebellar hemisphere, not cerebral. Cerebellar hemisphere. In this fold of the dura mater lie the one small venous sinus known as occipital sinus. One small venous sinus known as occipital sinus. Now come to the fourth fold of the dura mater, that is diaphragma celli. Is a horizontal sheet of inner layer of the dura mater, that is meningeal layer of the dura. All folds of the dura mater are formed by the meningeal layer, not by endosteal layer, that form a roof of the pituitary fossa. The dura of the floor of fossa is prolonged up the side of fossa, hitched between middle and posterior clinoidal process. See, this is the part of the sphenoid bone. Here is a cavity known as sella turcica. This cavity is known as sella turcica. The posterior part of the sphenoid bone is known as dorsum celli. Here is posterior clinoidal process. Here is anterior clinoidal process. And see, in this diagram, here is the middle clinoidal process. Here is middle clinoidal process. This sella turcica form the cavity for pituitary gland. See in this diagram. Here is cavity for the pituitary gland. This endosteal layer line the floor and side walls of the sella turcica, and meningeal layer form the roof of the sella turcica. In the roof, there is an opening through which a stalk of pituitary gland passes to the hypothalamus through infundibulum. The dura of the floor of fossa is prolonged by the side of fossa, hitched between middle and inferior posterior clinoidal process to form a flange lying between the fossa and cavernous sinus. Cavernous sinus lie just lateral to the fossa for pituitary gland. From this, the dura extend medially to form the diaphragma, which is perforated centrally for the passage of pituitary stalk and flow out laterally to form the roof of cavernous sinus. See, this is the fold of dura mater. It is diaphragma celli. Here is the opening for the stalk of the pituitary gland. Pituitary lie in the fossa. This is the cavernous sinus. The diaphragma celli turn laterally to form the roof of this cavernous sinus. See, here is the ridge of the dura mater formed by the free margin of the diaphragma celli, which attach to the anterior clinoidal process. Okay. The dura mater contains venous sinuses that drain the brain. The two layers of cranial dura mater are tightly fused, and there is no pathological condition in which the intradural space, intradural means the space between two layers of the dura mater, never develop. It's never developed. However, at the attached edge of the dural fold, the two layers are normally separated to form the venous channels. Between the fold of dura mater, at the attached margin of the folds of dura mater, the two layers of the dura mater separated to form the venous sinuses, into which the cerebral veins empty. These sinuses are roughly triangular in cross section, are lined with endothelium. What is the lining of the venous sinuses? Are endothelial lining. The location of major sinuses can be inferred by considering the line of attachment of dural folds. See, in this diagram, I am describing all venous sinuses. First one is the superior sagittal sinus. I told you earlier. Second one is inferior sagittal sinus. These two sinuses lie in the falx cerebri. Third one is the transverse sinus. Third one is the transverse sinus, will lie at the attached margin of the tentorium cerebelli. Here is the transverse sinus. Fourth one is the superior petrosal sinus. Fourth one is the superior petrosal sinus, which lie at the attached margin of the tentorium cerebelli on the petrous temporal bone. Okay, the transverse sinus end into sigmoid sinus, S-shaped sinus, which ultimately drain into the internal jugular vein. Internal jugular vein connect with the subclavian vein to form the brachiocephalic vein. Okay, which drain to brachiocephalic vein ultimately form superior vena cava, which drain into the right atrium of the heart. See, these are the venous sinuses. One more important venous sinus is the cavernous sinus. See, this is cavernous sinus. Here is, I discussed this later on in this lecture in detail. At the junction of the superior sagittal sinus and two transverse sinus, this part is known as confluences of the sinus. This part is known as confluence of the sinus. See, this is the attached margin of the tentorium cerebelli. Here is the transverse sinus. Two transverse sinus lie at the posterior margin of the tentorium cerebelli. This is superior petrosal sinus, which lie over the superior margin of the petrous temporal bone. Third, another venous sinus is the straight sinus, which lie at the junction of tentorium cerebelli with the falx cerebri. Falx cerebri attached over the upper surface of the tentorium. At the junction, there is another sinus known as a straight sinus. See, here is the cavernous sinus. Below this tentorium cerebelli, there is another sinus known as inferior petrosal sinus. Here you can see it is the inferior petrosal sinus. Third one, another small sinus is the small occipital sinus. I discussed it lie within the border of the falx cerebelli. Here is the occipital sinus. See, here is the below the transverse sinus. Here is occipital sinus. Okay. The confluences of sinus is generally not a symmetrical structure. Usually, most of the blood from superior sagittal sinus flow into right transverse sinus, whereas blood from a straight sinus flow into the left transverse sinus. Occasionally, the two transverse sinus are not interconnected at all. In addition to receiving cerebral veins, the major dural sinuses are connected with several small sinuses. As I discussed, the inferior sagittal sinus, it drain into the straight sinus. The small occipital sinus, which drain into the confluences of the sinus. The superior petrosal sinus drain at the junction of transverse sinus and sigmoid sinus. The inferior petrosal sinus follow the groove between temporal and occipital bone. Blood from cavernous sinus to the internal jugular. Inferior petrosal sinus directly open into the internal jugular vein instead of opening into the venous sinuses. Now come to the venous drain. Till now I discussed about the venous sinuses which lie within the two layer of the dura mater at the attached margin of the dural folds. The venous sinuses are superior sagittal sinus, inferior sagittal sinus, transverse sinus. There are two transverse sinus, confluences of sinus, straight sinus, sigmoid sinus, occipital sinus, superior petrosal sinus, inferior petrosal sinus. Till now I discuss all these things. Now come to the venous drainage of the brain. The brain is drained by two types of veins. First is superficial, which lie on the surface of the brain. Second one is the deep veins, which drain the deeper part of the brain. The principal route of the venous drainage of the brain is through a system of cerebral veins that empty into the dural venous sinuses. These veins, whether superficial or deep, all ultimately drain into the venous sinuses which lie within the folds of the dura mater. These superficial and deep veins of the brain lie within the subarachnoid space. They pierce the dura mater to open into the dural venous sinuses. These veins, like cerebral artery, can be visualized by angiographic or digital techniques. There is also a collection of emissary veins. What is emissary vein? Emissary veins are the connecting veins that connect the intracranial veins or dural venous sinuses with the extracranial veins, such as venous drainage of the face and intracranial veins are connected by emissary veins. These emissary veins play a relatively minor role in the normal circulatory pattern, but can be an important clinically as a path for the spread of infection from extracranial part to intracranial part. So, emissary vein is an important pathway for spread of infection from the extracranial part to the cranial cavity. The cerebral veins are conventionally divided into superficial and deep groups. The superficial veins lie on the surface. Most of the veins are emptied into the superior sagittal sinus, whereas deep veins drain internal structure of the brain and eventually drain into a straight sinus. Cerebral veins are valveless, and in contrast to the artery, these venous channels have various anastomotic channels. They anastomose freely with each other. See in this diagram, I am trying to describe the superficial veins. See, in the lateral sulcus, here is the superficial middle cerebral vein. Middle cerebral vein having superficial and deep part. Superficial lie on the surface and deeper part lie within the substance of the brain. This is superficial middle cerebral vein. This superficial middle cerebral vein is drained into the cavernous sinus. See, here is the cavernous sinus is connected with the superficial middle cerebral vein. But this superficial middle cerebral vein is anastomosed with the superior sagittal venous sinus through two anastomosing channels. First one is superior, second one is inferior. Superior anastomosing vein is known as vein of Troland. It connects the superficial middle cerebral vein with the superior sagittal venous sinus. Inferior channel connect the superficial middle cerebral vein with the transverse sinus by vein of the Lavey. This is inferior anastomosing channel. This is inferior anastomosing channel. See, here is the inferior anastomosing channel and here is the superior anastomosing channel. channel. This is superficial middle cerebral vein. This is superficial middle cerebral vein. Another superficial vein is the basal vein of the Rosenthal. Dark blue color are shown in this diagram is the basal vein, which lies superficially, but it drains the deeper structures of the brain and ultimately drain into a straight sinus, not in superior sagittal or transverse sinus. It's ultimately drain into, just like deep vein, it drain into the straight sinus. Here is the straight sinus. See, this vein is known as basal vein of the Rosenthal. Again, see, this is the superficial middle cerebral vein having superior anastomosing channel, having inferior anastomosing channel. Inferior one connect the superficial middle cerebral vein with the transverse sinus by vein of Labbé. This is vein of Trollant, which connect the superficial middle cerebral vein with the superior sagittal sinus. This superficial middle cerebral vein drain into cavernous sinus, as I show you in previous diagram. It also connected with the superior sagittal sinus and transverse sinus. Okay. Now come to the deep veins of the cerebrum. The deep veins are most constant in configuration than the superficial veins because they are found deeper in the brain. Clinically useful radiological landmarks. The major deep vein is the internal cerebral vein. See in this diagram. See in this diagram, these are here corrugated marginal vein is in choroidal veins, which connect with the thalamostriate vein. Thalamostriate vein lie within the thalamostriate groove. These two connect with each other to form the internal cerebral vein. The two internal cerebral veins connect with each other to form the great cerebral vein of the Galen. Here is the great cerebral vein of the Galen. Okay, the choroidal vein, thalamostriate vein, choroidal vein and thalamostriate vein connected with the septal veins to form the internal cerebral vein. How internal cerebral vein form? By thalamostriate vein, choroidal vein and septal vein. This internal cerebral vein turn backward and connect with two sides of the internal cerebral vein connected each other and form the great vein of the Galen. In this great vein of the Galen, there see here inferior sagittal sinus open, and here is the basal vein of Rosenthal I described earlier. This basal vein is formed by the deep middle cerebral veins. Deep middle cerebral veins connected to form the basal vein. This basal vein is also drained into the straight great vein of Galen and form the great vein of Galen ultimately drain into the straight sinus. See here, this ultimately drain into the straight sinus. The great vein of Galen turned superiorly and joined the inferior sagittal sinus to form the straight sinus. How straight sinus is formed? Great vein of Galen joined with the inferior sagittal sinus. Here, these two basal veins also connected together. This form the straight sinus. There is a separate complex collection of veins that serves the cerebellum and brainstem. These drain into great vein and into a straight transverse and petrosal sinuses. The venous drainage of the cerebellum and brainstem drain into the Great vein may drain into great vein, may into straight, may into transverse, and may into the petrosal sinuses. That's all about the venous drainage of the brain. Now come to the cavernous sinus. It is very important topic from your examination point of view. So I am going to discuss in detail about cavernous sinus. Cavernous sinus is very important from clinical point of view also because it is related with some important structures. Cavernous sinus. Cavernous sinus lie alongside the body of the sphenoid bone in the middle cranial fossa. See, this is the middle cranial fossa. It lie alongside. This is the site for the cavernous sinus. This is the bone of sphenoid. The cavernous sinus lie within the sphenoidal bone, just lateral to the pituitary fossa. Here is the sella turcica, which form the cavity of the pituitary fossa. This cavernous sinus lie just lateral to this. There are pair of cavernous sinus. Each contain internal carotid artery and transmit some cranial nerves. Each receive blood from the three sources. Cavernous sinus receive blood from the three sources, from orbit, from vault bones, and from cerebral hemispheres. Each drain into three emerging veins, superior and inferior petrosal sinus, and a small vein to the pterygoid plexus. Cavernous sinus receive blood from orbit, vault of brain, and cerebral hemisphere, drain into superior and inferior petrosal sinus, and a small vein to the pterygoid plexus. A small vein is emissary vein, which connect extracranial to intracranial venous sinuses. The two sinuses are intercommunicates with each other. Their position, relation, and content make them key structure in topographical anatomy of the skull. The cavernous sinus lie in the space between the periosteum of the body of a sphenoid and fold of the dura mater, inner layer of the dura mater. The cavernous sinus having a roof, a floor, a medial wall, lateral wall, anterior limit, and posterior wall. The roof of the sinus formed by the just lateral to the diaphragma celli commences medially. Roof of the sinus where the side of the wall of the pituitary fossa and diaphragma celli meet. The roof is attached to the anterior and middle clinoidal process. See, here is the anterior clinoidal process, here is the middle clinoidal process. Roof is attached to this. It is perforated anteriorly by the internal carotid artery. See, it is the internal carotid artery which perforates the roof of the cavernous sinus and is raised into ridge laterally by the free margin of the tentorium cerebelli. See, here is the free margin of the tentorium cerebelli. Roof is raised laterally into a ridge which extend to the anterior clinoidal process. Just medial to this fold, third and fourth cranial nerve pierces the roof to lie in the lateral wall of the cavernous sinus. The medial to this, the roof is attached to the posterior clinoidal sinus. Here is posterior clinoidal sinus, the roof attached here. This span of the roof is continually medially as a diaphragma celli. This continued medially as diaphragma celli. Forward to the anterior clinoidal process, anterior part of the roof will line the outer surface of the lesser wing. Here is the optic canal. See, here is the optic canal. It covered the optic part of the optic canals. From the ridge of the tentorium cerebelli, which is connected to the anterior clinoidal process, the roof or inner layer of the dura mater descend to the floor of the middle cranial fossa. this turn to this floor of the middle cranial fossa. This form the lateral margin of the lateral wall of the cavernous sinus. In the lateral wall between the dura mater and the endothelial lining of the sinus, the third and fourth nerve lie. And here, see here, this is the trigeminal ganglia. From trigeminal ganglia, three nerves arises: ophthalmic, maxillary, and mandibular. The maxillary and ophthalmic branch of the fifth cranial nerve also lie in the lateral wall of this cavernous sinus. So third, fourth, and maxillary and ophthalmic nerve lie in the lateral wall of the cavernous sinus. Okay. The anterior limit of the lateral wall is its vertical line of fusion of endosteum with the greater wing of the sphenoid at the lateral margin of foramen rotundum. The limit of the cavernous sinus lateral margin is the foramen rotundum. See, here is the foramen rotundum. Foramen rotundum lie within the cavernous sinus. The lateral limit is lie at the lateral margin of the foramen rotundum and medial margin of the foramen ovale. See, this is the margin for the lateral wall. So, foramen rotundum lie within the margin of the cavernous sinus. Foramen ovale lie outside the margin of the cavernous sinus. Here is the foramen for the vein known as venous foramen of Vesalius. Lie medial to the foramen ovale. So, roof of the cavernous sinus is anterior limit lie at the lesser wing, posterior limit lie at the posterior clinoidal process, lateral wall limit lie on the greater wing of sphenoid at the lateral margin of the foramen rotundum and medial margin of foramen ovale. Foramen ovale lie outside the cavernous sinus. The floor of the sinus is a narrow strip of endosteum. Here, this form the floor of the along the base of the narrow strip of endosteum, base of the greater wing of the sphenoid. The medial wall of sinus is body of the medial wall is formed by the body of the sphenoid. Medially, it is separated from the pituitary fossa. Okay, the lateral wall of the pituitary fossa limit the medial wall of the cavernous sinus. The inner layer of the dura, which covers the posterior cranial fossa, passes vertically upward. See here, the posterior cranial fossa, dura mater of the posterior cranial fossa passes vertically upward to form the posterior margin of the cavernous sinus. Sixth nerve pierces this margin of the cavernous dural fold to lie within the substance of the cavernous sinus. So, how many cranial nerves are related with this? Sixth cranial nerve, fourth, third, and two branches of the fifth cranial nerve. And one more important artery is the internal carotid artery. Cavernous sinus thus extend from the apex of orbit back to the apex of the petrous temporal bone. Each end is pointed, so the narrow slit-like sinus is spindle-shaped in lateral view. Total capacity of each sinus is about 1.5 ml. The cavernous sinus differs from all the other venous sinuses of the dura mater by being intersected with numerous septa of the fibrous tissue, which divide the blood space into series of tiny caves, like corpora cavernosa of the penis. Hence, the name known as cavernous sinus. The content of cavernous sinus, as I discussed, the internal carotid artery, sixth nerve, and lateral wall. In the lateral wall, third, fourth, and ophthalmic and maxillary branches of the fifth nerve. In this diagram, I am going to describe about superior orbital fissures. This structure passes through the cavernous sinus. Here is the superior ophthalmic vein. Here are the four nerves superior inferior ophthalmic nerve, the abducent nerve, and nasociliary branch of the nasociliary branch nerve. Ophthalmic, nasociliary, frontal, and lacrimal. 3 branches are there. This is superior ophthalmic vein. Superior ophthalmic vein. Inferior ophthalmic vein passes through the infraorbital fissure. This is supraorbital fissure. Here is the tendinous ring through which the 4 nerves passes. This is superior inferior branch of the ophthalmic artery. This is nasociliary branch. This is lacrimal branch. Superior inferior oculomotor nerve. The nasociliary is the branch of ophthalmic nerve, which is a branch of 5th cranial nerve. This and abducent. This 4 nerve passes through the tendinous arch, and all other nerves, that is 4th and lacrimal and frontal branch of the ophthalmic nerve passes from the lateral part of the supraorbital fissure. Veins of the cavernous sinus. Although it is customary to think that the venous blood are as entering the cavernous sinus at the front and leaving from the behind and below, it must be remembered that the blood can flow in either direction in the sinus depending on the local venous pressure. The 2 sinus are also communicates with each other. First one is the superior ophthalmic vein, passes backward. Here is the superior ophthalmic vein. It passes backward to drain into the cavernous sinus. Inferior ophthalmic vein passes through the infraorbital fissure into the pterygoid plexus of vein. Second one is the sphenoparietal sinus. It lie beneath the edge of the lesser wing. Here is the sphenoparietal sinus and enter the roof of the sinus to drain. Superficial middle cerebral vein. I described earlier. Superficial middle cerebral vein is connected with the cavernous sinus. Superficial middle cerebral vein. See here. The cavernous sinus drained by the superior petrosal sinus, inferior petrosal sinus, and emissary vein, which connect to the pterygoid plexus of vein. Superior petrosal sinus connect the cavernous sinus with drain at the junction of the transverse and sigmoid sinus. And inferior petrosal sinus drain at the in the internal jugular vein. It drain in the internal jugular vein. Here, see here, inferior petrosal sinus lie here at the junction between the body of the sphenoid and petrous temporal bone. This part is known as one ligament here. This is known as Gruber's ligament. It may be ossified. Through this Gruber's ligament, 6 cranial nerve passes from the posterior wall of the cavernous sinus. The canal formed by this ligament, Gruber's ligament, is known as Dorillo canal, through which 6 cranial nerve passes into the substance of the cavernous sinus. Cavernous sinus drain into the pterygoid venous plexus by emissary vein, which usually passes through the foramen ovale or may be through venous foramen, which is known as Vesalius, foramen of the Vesalius. See, here is the cavernous sinus, here is the pterygoid plexus, which is connected with this. The 2 sides of the venous sinus of cavernous venous sinus are interconnected with each other through small veins which lie at the lie also in the diaphragma cell. Clinical anatomy. Cavernous sinus thrombosis. Cavernous sinus in venous connection with the skin of the part of the face. Infection may produce thrombosis. By superficial middle cerebral veins, such thrombosis can spread to the hemisphere. The danger area of the face lie above the level of the deep facial veins. It comprising upper lip, nose, and middle pan of the cheek. It is significant that it lie between the 2 veins of the communication between face, skin, and cavernous sinus. the angular vein and superior ophthalmic vein directly to the cavernous sinus, deep facial vein via pterygoid plexus, and communicating veins in the foramina veil and venous foramina basilis. Thrombosis of the cavernous sinus produces ophthalmoplegia from ocular nerve interruption and retrograde thrombosis of the inferior petrosal sinus medullary veins, usually fatal in nature. See, here is the angular vein, here is the deep facial vein. This passes to the angular vein through superior ophthalmic vein directly connected with the cavernous sinus. Deep facial vein drain into pterygoid plexus of vein. Pterygoid plexus of vein connected with emissary vein through the cavernous sinus. This area is known as dangerous area of the face. Infection through this area passes to the cranial cavity. There are three spaces as I described earlier. In these spaces, hemorrhage may occur: extradural hemorrhage, subdural hemorrhage, and subarachnoid hemorrhage. Fracture on the side of the skull may rupture the middle meningeal arteries, especially the frontal branch, causing extradural hemorrhage, which leads to the formation of hematoma between the bones of the skull and dura mater. This may cause pressure effect on the motor area, causing contralateral hemiparesis. Subdural hemorrhage is usually caused by rupture of the superior cerebral vein. As it entered the superior sagittal vein, the venous blood escape into the space between the dura. It may similar pressure effect as extra. It is slower in development because it is venous blood. Subarachnoid hemorrhage. The rupture of artery in the subarachnoid space causes subarachnoid hemorrhage. Thank you.